What's up, everyone? A quick programming note before we get started. This episode was recorded on Monday afternoon before the Atlanta Falcons defeated the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. So, yes, that means the Panthers now have two paths to the playoffs. They'll make the postseason if they defeat or tie the Bucs on Saturday, or if the Falcons defeat the Saints on Sunday. Unbelievable stuff. All right, on to the show. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where, yes, we process blue for you. I'm Alex Zietlow, and I'm joined today by not one, but two amazing guests, Carolina Panthers beat reporter Mike Kaye and columnist Scott Fowler. And my fellow observer writes, I have so many questions for you, but my first question is going to resemble Bryce Young when he's in the huddle and about to embark on a potential game-winning drive. Today, right now on this podcast, is there any place you'd rather be?
Oh, absolutely not. This would definitely be the summit of my life right now to be on this podcast. Thank you for inviting me back. I've been a substitute teacher for a while and now feel like I'm in the faculty teacher workroom. So thank you. But as far as Panther fans listening to this go, I would say this. Do appreciate this moment. Please do back up for a second from all your holiday, turmoil that you're going through, and just think about how weird this is. That the Panthers are on the final day of the season, final weekend, going to be playing in an absolutely meaningful game that is a win or you're in playoff game for them. In a primetime slot, basically Saturday at 4:30 p.m. No other game on TV, no NFL game that day. An enormous number of people are going to watch this. And, having covered a lot of really, really poor seasons over the years, these moments don't come along very often, so appreciate it.
Mike?
I'm well. It's what a time to be alive. I like that Scott always has like the Queen album cover background where it's like everything's dark around him and he's just like looking up like that. But I agree with Scott. I mean, I understand that I haven't been around this team as long as he has, or really in this area as long as you have, Alex. But, the last four seasons, they have been interesting and not in a good way. And I think they're playing with house money right now. Scott predicted 6 wins. I predicted 7. You predicted 8, Alex. They could win 9, and they could win a division title, and they can make the playoffs for the first time since 2017. So I think when you have the opportunity to grab something, you yearn for it, especially when you haven't had it for a while. And I think Panthers fans are cautiously optimistic. They don't want to be hurt. But I think you're going to have to give in to this game. It's all or nothing. We know what the stakes are. It's time for the Panthers to show us who they are, and I think they'll reveal who they are in this game.
I really hope that, Austin Corbett and Ike Ekwonu are this, eloquent when it comes to giving pump-up speeches in the huddle, because I'm ready to go. Let's get it going. It's Monday afternoon, about 24 hours removed from the Panthers' Week 17 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. We got a great show for you today. We'll be rehashing that 27-10 loss on Sunday that, yes, could have delivered the Panthers a playoff berth. We'll preview this winner-take-all matchup that y'all just mentioned with the Bucs at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday in Tampa Bay. We'll give our predictions and all that stuff. But first, Mike, you put in a lot of legwork last week around the Panthers locker room and tallied up who the players consider the offensive, defensive, and special teams MVPs for the season. Can you take us through the third edition of the Charlotte Observer MVP Awards, or however you're labeling them? I'm not the marketing genius that you are, but can you take us through these MVP awards, how they started, what you had to do to get them done?
So originally, when I started doing them, it was during the Frank Reich season, and there was nothing positive to take away from that campaign, but there were some guys that really stood out. Derek Brown, for one. who deserved recognition. And I thought, what better way to acknowledge these players than to talk to their teammates and get votes. The voting grew pretty significantly from the previous year to the second year. This year we had roughly the same number. Last year we had 64 votes. The year before, this year we had 63. And I just thought it was a way for the three of us to offer our takes, but as well as the locker room. Some people actually took it pretty seriously. The sole rules though for this were you couldn't vote for yourself, and you had to be on either the practice squad, IR, or the regular roster for at least a month. So 4 weeks, 4 games. That was kind of the thing. The only 2 players that openly abstained were Bryce Young, who has done that all 3 years. Whatever. On Merrick, who was like, I'm just not going to just individualize who's being successful and who's not, which I respected. I think what was interesting about this, and speaking about Young, is he has grown exponentially as far as the respect he's gained over the last 3 years. He went from receiving 0 votes as a rookie, despite being a 16-game starter, to being benched, but then having that miraculous final, few games and getting 15 votes. This year, he ran away with the first place vote. This is his first time at the top of the mountain for the Charlotte Observer locker room MVP votes. He had, I believe, 51 votes. The next closest guy was 6. And so I think that speaks to how Bryce has galvanized the locker room. I think it shows the belief that, his teammates have. The second place nominee was the runner-up was Rico Dowdle. On defense, it was a little bit closer. Derek Brown won it by a significant margin, but not as significant as Bryce over Rico. J.C. Horn was the runner-up. He's the team's lone Pro Bowler. Special teams was actually pretty close. Thomas Incoom, who I've talked about quite a bit since training camp, he won the special teams MVP, followed by Ryan Fitzgerald. It was pretty close, just a few votes separating them. Incoom, as I'm looking at my notes, had 22 and Fitzgerald had 19. So pretty close, and those guys get recognition. And Derek Brown is the first ever 2-time defensive MVP. So
heck yeah. Mike, real quick. So to be clear, you are like going around the locker room with your notebook and just asking, okay, who's your MVP on offense? And they're all anonymous, and you're just going around and you're just doing tally marks, right?
Yeah, essentially. I'm doing legwork and lead work as I scribble down on my piece of paper. And then obviously I pulled you guys for your MVPs. My MVPs were Tetero McMillan. He's been the lone major difference-making playmaker on offense as far as doing it consistently and coming up big in huge spots. I know Rico Dowdle had a huge breakout, which I'm sure you want to talk about, Alex, but throughout the season, I feel like the Seahawks game notwithstanding, he has been just clutch. He's made great plays, and he's been the guy who's kind of stirred the drink for this offense. Defensively, Derek Brown, and then special teams-wise, Sam the Weapon Martin. So that's where I'm at. What were your guys' takes on this whole MVP process?
Yeah, Scott, I wanted to get yours. So Bryce was offensive MVP. Derek Brown was defensive, and special teams was Thomas Incoom. Did you get any of those 3?
Yes, one of the 3 I agreed with, and that was Bryce. A little hard to talk about it after what just happened in Seattle, but you got to look at the whole picture. And Bryce, to me, has taken a real leap in his 3rd year, particularly in making plays in the 4th quarter when it really matters. He has, led 12 game-winning drives now in his career, which is a lot if you've only played 3 years, and 6 of them have been this year. So he's really stepped it up in the right moments, a large percentage of the time, not all the time. But Rico to me was definitely I thought about that one too. And T-Mac is a good choice too. But overall, I'd say Bryce. I voted for J.C. Horn as defensive MVP, and that was close with Derek Brown. I just think J.C., for all the reasons he made the Pro Bowl, 5 picks is really hard to do this at this point in the NFL. That's a mountainous stat. So gave him the narrow nod. And then at special teams, I went with Fitzgerald. And the reason is he has been so dang clutch, again, sort of like Bryce. I mean, to hit a game-winning field goal in Lambeau Field or, against the Cowboys or against the Falcons, this is a rookie who's just done some remarkable things. And a lot of games could have swung the other way if he just had made one really poor kick. And he's not made everything, but he has made a lot of stuff. So those were my 3. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I was one of the 6 votes for Rico Dowdle. And then I went Derek Brown and Ryan Fitzgerald, just like you, Scott. I guess I'll just really quickly with Rico. Panthers are down 17-0 in Miami. Scott, I think you tweeted out mid-game, this is the kind of game where people get fired for. And and all of a sudden Rico Dowdle runs for, 230 something yards, kind of giving this Panthers offense some sort of life. Because even when the Panthers beat the Falcons 30-0, that kind of felt like a special teams and defensive win in many ways. And so the Panthers won with their offense, and they won it because of Rico. The next week, Rico gets revenge on this Dallas Cowboys team, and then all of a sudden the Panthers are dangerous. And I don't think that this season could have happened without that stretch from the Panthers running back. And it's funny to look back on all these sliding doors moments, but it's like, what happens if Chuba Hubbard doesn't get hurt? What happens if the Panthers have to figure out life with Chuba Hubbard and Rico kind of splitting carries and them not having an identity in the run game? Like everything changes. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose Rico. I chose Ryan on special teams because he's been clutch as well. I think 4 game-winning kicks for a rookie is the most since like 2011 or something like that. I wrote that previously. It's escaped my memory now. And then Derek Brown is just remarkable. And it's an utter disappointment that he didn't make the Pro Bowl this year. But we have litigated that before on this podcast and previous things. Any final things that we want to say before we move on to our next topic? Any final things on the MVP discussion?
I think Thomas Nku making it as a coverage guy, it's typically guys that make it for their coverage. Last year, it was Felipe Franks, and Lonnie Johnson was his runner-up. The year before, I believe it was Sam Franklin and Johnny Hecker. So I think the fact that a rookie kicker was able to make it shows the amount of respect he's gained. I mean, this was a guy that Dave Canales refused to call him their kicker for the long term, and now he's that guy. I will say with Sam Martin, if you look at like the coverage, like the returns against them, it's not pretty. So it was kind of hard for me to vote for coverage. Everybody, I mean, Alex, I talk about Thomas Nku all the time, but I think Sam Martin has really saved them in a lot of these very close games, similarly to making clutch field goals. So that's why I wanted to give him his due. But I think the conversation is really interesting. And Scott bringing up this past game, I think for Bryce is also really interesting as we get into the thick of recapping this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's get into it. So, Scott, I'll start with you. I guess Panthers total offense against the Seattle Seahawks, 139 total yards, 99 rushing yards, 40 passing yards. Yes, Bryce Young finished with a career low 54 passing yards, but he also took 2 sacks for minus 14. I think technically those kneels counted toward his rushing total, so the kneels weren't part of the sacks. Scott, let me just be general with you. What made this offense so anemic in your eyes?
Well, the first thing that made it that bad was Seattle's defense is so damn good. That's an incredible team. I think, before we start thinking about everything that went wrong for the Panthers, and a lot did, you got to look at the quality of opponent. And that's a team that I think very, very possibly will win the Super Bowl, or at least make the Super Bowl. I don't know if they will, but they feel to me like the best team in the NFC right now. beyond that, I thought the game plan wasn't good. I think, Dave Canales admitted that a little bit today, that, if T-Mac is really your focal point, supposedly in the offense, how do you only throw into him 4 times, and how's he only catching 1 for 5 yards? I know he was sick, but he was out there. Everyone's dealing with something, right? So I think that was, I just don't think they ever tried to take the top off. And then the players just didn't win one-on-ones. And that's everywhere. The offensive line and all the receivers who had some one-on-one coverage and couldn't break free. Bryce, was not good. And so none of them were good. 1 for 11 on 3rd downs that's like high school numbers, when you're playing when you're like a 2A team playing a 7A team or something. And so is 54 passing yards. That's incredibly low. As I mentioned today, the last time he threw for that low of a number, 84 yards in week 2 of 2024, he got benched. That was the famous Bryce gets benched for the next 5 weeks game. This one's, feels a lot different because the quality of opponent's better, and he has earned some leash with this, the year that he's had. But he's going to have to play really big again against Tampa Bay, a much more doable thing to do. But that offense, my goodness, they have to score in the 20s in this game to win it. What did you guys think?
Mike, you got it.
Defensively, I thought they played very well. So let me give you a couple of stats. When the Seahawks started on their side of the field, they scored 6 total points. When the Seahawks started on the Panthers side of the field, they scored 3 touchdowns, 21 points. The Panthers turned the ball over twice in their own territory and then also had a turnover on downs. Those led to the 3 touchdowns for Seattle. This defense took away points with the interception by Mike Jackson. They created 3 points because the offense couldn't do anything and essentially had a 3-and-out that led to a field goal after Nick Scorton forced a fumble, and it was recovered by Christian Roseboom. Offensively, they let the defense down. I don't like doing that where it's like one side, they didn't play complementary football. This is this person's fault. And solely the defense showed up. Special teams showed up. Trevor Etienne returned some kicks. 5 because, they scored, or 6, whatever. The problem with this offense and with Dave Canales as a play caller, if you recall last week, I said that he has built a culture and is a leader of men. I believe in him as a leader. I think the way that this offense reacts to things when things go wrong is problematic, and it needs to be assessed in the offseason. There needs to be an infrastructure change. I'm not calling for anybody's job. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying it's Bryce Young's fault. I'm not saying it's totally Dave Canales' fault. But they need to figure this thing out, because if they go into Tampa and they have a stinker like this, it's going to be problematic for everybody involved. And I agree with Scott. You have to take in, who you're playing. But if this Panthers team wants to be taken seriously as a playoff team and not just some paper tiger, they're going to go up against, guess what? The NFC West in this playoffs at least once, probably twice, if they're able to make it to the second round. They need to figure out this offense, because it's too stop and start. When everything's going well, it's sunshine and rainbows. When it is not, it is a hard product to watch. It is a hard product to follow. And all of us have our replies blowing up over the way this offense performed. And I think they told on themselves a little bit after the game. Mitchell Evans said that they found something in 13 personnel that they really liked. And then immediately Jatavian Sanders goes down, and Dave Canales said it was a couple of plays, but it kind of seemed like they were shell-shocked by it. And then on top of that, T-Mac's illness, as Scott brought up, even if he's not capable of playing to the level that he can, even though Bryce Young and Dave Canales said that he looked the part, when that's not working, you have to move on to something else and be adaptable. And I don't think this offense has been adaptable. That's been the one flaw. When stuff is going well and they're play calling perfectly and everything's in a rhythm, it goes well. But their inability to react to the negative is kind of problematic for me.
That makes sense. I just from 1,000-foot view, the thing that got me was there was just no ability to break tackles. The Seahawks, perhaps they're one of the best tackling teams in the NFL, but like Rico Dowdle had a one-on-one. I'm just like picturing he caught a swing pass in the flat or something, and he couldn't find a way to shake his defender or at least fall forward. That happened with Jimmy Horn once, at least. These are some of the most elusive guys on the team. You got to be able to, when nothing is working schematically, you got to find a way to get 3 or 4 extra yards on those sorts of plays. One positive, the Panthers debuted their short yardage formation and had Mitchell Evans under center. So that's pretty cool. Mike, do you want to take any credit for that, or we moving on?
We appreciate the Panthers for their subscription to the Charlotte Observer. I'm sure Scott's the one that got him there, but, I'm sure they really enjoy my Wednesday analysis.
A final thing about this game before we move on. Obviously, Bryce Young had a career low in passing yards, but, I don't think he actually – I mean, yes, he played poorly, and yes, the fact that the offense was so bad is a reflection on him. But, coming away from the game, it felt like his ability to create and his ability to run was really the only life that this offense had. I mean, he was under pressure a lot. He found a lot of success running the ball. Obviously, the Panthers' only touchdown was a rushing touchdown from Bryce Young, which actually catapulted him into second all-time in Panthers quarterback rushing touchdowns behind Cam Newton. He took that title from Sam Darnold, by the way, which was just kind of an interesting moment of serendipity. But I just don't think he played as bad as his numbers showed. Do y'all disagree with that? Mike, do you disagree with that? You're shaking your head.
I thought Dexter Lawrence took over this game. I thought the line of scrimmage was dominated by the Seahawks front seven. And I think that kind of curbed Bryce's ability to create as a passer with mobility, the way he manipulates the pocket. I think part of it is what the Seattle defense did to him. I didn't think he played well. 54 passing yards. I mean, the one interception, when you look at the replay, initially I thought they just had a miscommunication, but it was underthrown and pretty easy to get under by Julian Love. I thought, honestly, the play calling and the choices as a passer were kind of lame or kind of timid. He didn't really throw a lot beyond the line of scrimmage, and I think if that was the game plan, somebody should have pushed back against that, especially after halftime. And so I would just say the play calling, and I think the Seahawks front seven greatly limited him. That said, sometimes you got to take it in your own hands and air it out. One issue with Bryce Young, even during this turnaround, and I'm not a pure numbers guy, but when you see Cam Ward got 3,000 yards this season in 16 games, and Bryce has still never exceeded that despite being a 16-game starter as a rookie. I understand he had terrible weapons around him. So does Cam Ward. And then what he's got this year, I just feel like there's not enough of a push to throw down the field consistently.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree. Yeah.
I mean, you see it, though.
Yeah. Well, they're not always open, but they don't take enough risks. That's the bottom line. I mean, they're just – you got to throw it down the field to Horn once a game and just let it be overthrown. I mean, even the one time I think they tried it, I think they actually were going to have Coker open on that one play where he got pass interfered with. Smart play by Seattle because he was doing a stop and go and about to beat the guy, and he just basically pushed him to get the, a 10-yard penalty. Could have been a 40-yard gain. That was it. I mean, you just gotta. They're playing. They had 8 or 9 people so close to the line of scrimmage. I don't know what. And then I would say before we move on, the last thing, Also, I thought Seattle kind of dominated offensively on the line of scrimmage too. Those are some big guys, and Corum, just kind of bruised. He was a bruiser and ran for 110 or something. They had a hard time stopping him. That was, to me, that's the worst matchup if you think ahead. You don't want to play Seattle. Give them the Rams. I think the 49ers, as wonderful as their offense is, at least will give up points. But my goodness, that Seattle team, I don't think you want them twice. But maybe that's not going to be a problem. So we'll move on. That's far down the road from you got to beat Tampa Bay first to worry about any of that.
So let's talk about Tampa Bay. Scott, I'm just laughing at the fact that you were shell shocked we didn't the Panthers just cannot afford to see the Seahawks again. That's funny. Let's move on to week 18, where the Panthers are into the playoffs with a win. They will be in Tampa Bay. If they do come away with the win, it'll be their first playoff appearance since 2017. Just a note, we are recording this on Monday afternoon, so there is still a very narrow path to the playoffs if the Panthers do in fact lose. That narrow path involves the Falcons, but a lot needs to happen for that to work out. So we won't go too much into detail on that. But as Bryce Young said on the podium Sunday night, as far as he's concerned, this Saturday game against the Bucs is a playoff game. The playoffs, quote, come early. So let's talk about it real quick. Scott, I will start with you. I understand that there's a lot of good vibes in Carolina right now. The Bucs are only favored by 3.5 points according to the sports books, and they're at home. They're otherwise in free fall. They've lost 7 of their last 8, and that includes losing their last 4, blah, 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 blah. But am I crazy, Scott? I'm not super convinced the Bucs are in all of that dire straits. It's not ideal to lose your last 4 games, obviously, but the point differentials in those last 4 games, 4 points, 1 point, 3 points, 3 points. They are literally a Baker Mayfield completion or just an incompletion against the Panthers as opposed to an interception away from having the NFC title right now. So I'm not super – I don't know, man. I'm not super convinced that the Bucs are in free fall and that this is like – that the Panthers, obviously the sports books don't say the Panthers are expected to win, but I'm not so I don't have the conviction that a lot of these diehard Panthers fans on Twitter do, saying that the NFC South crown is theirs. Scott, can you remind people how close this game was 2 weeks ago? Because maybe some have forgotten.
Well, hopefully not. That's a really short-term memory if you've forgotten it 2 weeks ago already, but I'm sure that has happened. People, retroactively you think, oh yeah, the Panthers they were destined to win that game. Didn't really feel like it at the time. That was an absolute war, 20-20 and then 23-20, if I'm remembering it right. And then at the end, the Bucs are driving down there and Baker Mayfield just makes the kind of play that he used to make as a Panther very frequently. And that was an ill-timed interception. With Tampa Bay, he hadn't done that very much, but this year he has more. And he threw one that Lathan Ransom picked off, and that kind of saved the Panthers, from at least maybe another overtime situation. Bryce was good in that game, threw for close to 200 yards and a couple of TDs. I expect this game to be much the same. I think these teams line up talent-wise very similarly, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all, and they're gonna have to play better than they did against Seattle to win it. Tampa Bay, as you say, this isn't a team losing by 20 points. This is a team that's just caught a lot of bad breaks, and they've gotten a lot of guys healthy, and it'll be a war for sure.
Yeah, and a head coach that knows Dave Canales pretty well in Todd Bowles. Mike, what are your expectations for Week 18?
Kind of similar. I think this is going to come down to the wire. I think, like Scott said, this is going to be a division fight. This is not going to be a blowout either way. I think the Panthers have matched the Bucs in production and talent, at least this year. I think the Bucs are more talented, but I think from a talent consistency standpoint and an output, I think, you look at the comparables of the wide receivers. I think Igbuka is behind McMillan. You look at the running game; those are pretty comparable numbers. Like Bucky Irving's awesome, but like they're not consistent enough for you to feel like the Bucs should be heavily favored. And you get 3 points for being at home, so really they're only like a half-point favorite. I would probably take the points just because I think it's going to be very close, and I think it's going to come down to the wire, and it's going to be a really tough file at the gun to take you behind the scenes. But, when have the Panthers ever been, easy, right? But I do think if that means that the Panthers win, it will be all that more satisfying. I do think it's kind of weird that everybody was like, yeah, they'll just sweep the Bucs because of I don't know. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. And I think if things go poorly early, it's going to be tough for the Panthers to react in a way that it doesn't look like Seattle and think stuff's crumbling. I understand that Bryce Young is able to come back in games, but if they get down by a significant margin, let's say 13 points, I am a tad concerned. And so it's hard to trust this offense. It just really is. That's what it's going to come down to. I think the defense will be game. I think they've found something in their pass rush and in their front seven. Mike Jackson leads the league in pass breakups with 19. He just needs 2 more against Tampa Bay to break the franchise record. He and J.C. Horn have 9 combined interceptions. If they can create turnovers, they'll keep the Panthers in the game. But the Panthers' offense failed against Seattle. They absolutely cannot do that against Tampa Bay, and have hats and T-shirts after the game, and go to a nearby Outback Steakhouse. It's just down the street. Like you just go up the thing and then you turn. Anyway, I had to walk it last year. But I think this will definitely be a different game than it was last year in Tampa, where it felt like it was a funeral because the Bucs just ran through the Panthers without several of their key players.
Wait, so Mike, after the Tampa Bay game last year, you walked to Outback Steakhouse?
Yeah. So for some reason, when I left, there were absolutely no Ubers there at the time, and then it was it'll be 20 minutes to your Uber, and I was like, well.
Well, wait a minute. What's your Uber rating? That might have something to do with it.
Oh, I have a top 5 rating there, Scott. You should know. Alex should tell you. I dislike talking to people in the car. I know that might be a surprise to you.
What? Yeah.
I like
that
silence.
That literally makes no sense. But okay.
I mean, I think if you really research and read into the way I communicate, it does make a ton of sense. But that said.
Mike, are there just gobs and gobs of research papers on how Mike Kaye?
Well, no, I just think and for some reason, I know you can put silent on a thing, but I don't want to be a jerk. But for some reason, every single time I step in an Uber, it's the welcome wagon just comes up and they're like, "Hey, so just so you know, this, and this." Sometimes I'm just I like talking. I like communication on my own terms, I guess, is the big takeaway there. I'm not rude. I'm not trying to be dismissive. It's just it seems like every time I get somebody, they have to match my level of communication. Okay. And so then I feel like I'm you guys, which I don't want to feel like I'm you guys.
Okay. So I'm gonna give my prediction for this Panthers Bucs game. But before that, I'm going to give a desire as well. My desire is that Mike is going to have to, engage with a ride-sharing person this weekend. That'll be good. That'll be great. And then we can get more content for the podcast and everyone's happy. I guess I'll go first. I mean, the gap has kind of narrowed when it comes to these predictions because Scott has gone on a little bit of a losing streak. It doesn't matter because he's already claimed the title for that predictor championship. But hey, I've predicted the last 2 games correctly. And so that's pretty cool. I'm going to take the Panthers winning because this Carolina team is embracing the chaos and they've embraced chaos all year. I'm going to take them in a 28-27 win. Ryan Fitzgerald's going to kick his 5th game-winning field goal. You know the deal. And Bryce Young's going to get like his 50th game-winning drive or whatever it is. And I think the Panthers are going to punch their ticket to their first playoffs since 2017. Let's go, Mike. What's your prediction?
Like a jam-packed party bus or SUV in Jacksonville, Florida on a Saturday, I think this is going to be a pretty chaotic affair. Alex can speak from experience. Since you took the like you and I think are tied right now. Since you took the Panthers and seemingly one of us has to get something wrong, I'm gonna make the universe feel a little bit better, and I'll take the Buccaneers. I'm gonna say Buccaneers 24, Panthers 23. I think it's gonna be close. Like you said, I think it will come down to the wire. And I think, this is just going to be one of those ones where whoever makes the least amount of mistakes wins. And it doesn't feel pretty. But hey, hopefully there's some outback afterwards, like I said.
All right, Scott. This is why people pay. So let's hear what you got to say.
I'm going with a overtime tie. No, not really. I'm going to let's back up just for a second. When you said I'm in a little bit of a losing streak, my record this year is 9-7, which is not great. Picking one at a game at a time, but both of you are tied at 5-11, so that's not exactly a small margin. And so you should believe my pick here, and my choice is Panthers. Get off the 8-year postseason losing streak. Win this game by more than you think, because the defense is going to play well. Baker Mayfield, I'm trusting in his ability to implode, which he did so many times as a Panther in that one star-crossed season. Panthers 23, Bucs 16 is my pick.
Wow. The metronome continues.
So Scott, you think they're going to buck the trend?
Yes, exactly.
God, I would hate to have
a Buc-ee's after that. Yes.
Okay, well done, guys. Any final thoughts before I take us out of the show? Good stuff as always. I mean, this is it. We asked Dave Canales on Monday, is it going to be difficult for the team to refocus, blah, blah, blah. And he essentially gave a mini pump up speech talking about how, hey, this is what you dream of. This is word to Bryce Young. Where else would you rather be? Any final thoughts before we end the show?
Not to sound defeatist in advance, but I think this season has been a success one way or the other. And I think you can't lose sight of how good the rookie class has been. Some of the guys they've brought in, the core that they're forming. Obviously, there have been some mistakes. The 2024 draft class looks pretty rough. The 2023 draft class, outside of Bryce Young, is almost not like a non-factor. There's a lot of work to be done. But for a team that really was planning on competing in 2026, for them to be where they are, I think in and itself is important. And it can't be something that is just completely, thrown away. But I think for this franchise to get over the hump and really kind of push that momentum, a win on Sunday would be huge.
Yep, I'd agree. I think that's I think the only thing I'd say is they won 2 games, then they won 5 games last year, and now they won 8 games this year, maybe a 9th. So it has been a nice improvement for them regardless. I do think we're going to be revising this podcast, doing this podcast again, a playoff preview next week, or, if not, I tell you what, seasons end abruptly every single year. And so there's always that possibility too, man. It is like falling off a cliff when the season is over for really anyone who cares about a team, because it's just gone. So hopefully the Panthers can keep it going another week. That's what I'm predicting. But gosh, who knows? It's going to be a really good game, I think, on Saturday.
Yes, and we will be back regardless. The Processing Blue podcast will. No matter what happens, we will continue churning out
wonderful content. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Scott, you ain't got to laugh when you say it like that, though. But anyway, all right, and throughout, obviously, the offseason and through the draft and the combine, we will be here for you. All right. Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kaye and Scott Fowler and myself and our wonderful producer, Emily Broyles. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to CharlotteObserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike and Scott, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap, Alex and Scott.